Hi guys, I'm Bobsy, and in this video I'm going to go through how we work with the addressables within PurrNet. Now, there's a few things that we're going to be going through. Of course, addressable spawning and despawning, addressable scene handling, and addressable RPCs as well, essentially how you can send addressable references over RPCs. And this is quite useful. So let's get right into it. Let's start with the actual addressable setup. So I've already imported addressables into Unity. As soon as you do that, you should see your network manager gets this addressable network prefabs field. And also within my addressables group, I've just had the default local group already set up. Now, if I go now here, I have a test addressable. Well, it's technically not an addressable yet. It just has network transform and a rigid body on it. That's all. And I've just set it to not force sleep the rigid body. And I'm just going to click to make that an addressable, and it's automatically added into my default group. So now we can see it in my addressables group here. Also, bear with me, I'm not that used to working with addressables, but I am going to do my best here. I'm the one who made the implementation, however. So if we now go and hit new on the addressables here, and let's just drag and drop that into my addressables folder, because that's where I want it. And I want to feed that the folder of the addressables, and I want to hit auto generate. And now it should already find automatically the addressable here. So you can see that has now been updated, and it found our test addressable. And preload at startup, that's up to you. It's just essentially whether it should load all the prefabs from the very beginning that's already known within this list, or you can disable it and just have them load them as needed be. Let's say that you have 10,000 addressables, you might not want them preloaded at startup, but in our case we have very few, so I just preload them at startup since that's quicker. Cool, now this is populated here and I'm going to apply all. The reason for this is another thing that I've also set up just going forward is another scene for future testing, just a duplicate of this scene essentially. But right now, let's focus on spawning and despawning. Now on my player, I've gone ahead and already set up a test spawn script. There's absolutely nothing in this test spawn script. It's just an empty script that's already a network identity, and that's essentially it. Now, you know how when you work with addressables normally, let's make a private void, let's do spawn addressable. When you work with addressables normally, what you would do is you'd hit addressables dot, and then you'd call instantiate async, and then you'd have some kind of asset reference. So let's serialize field, private, asset reference game object in our case, and this is just the test object. And let's go ahead and spawn that in here. So here we spawn the object, and let's also just spawn it in front of the player. So transform.position plus transform.forward, and let's also do it transform.up just to be a little bit above the ground as well. And let's also just spawn it with the transform.rotation. Like this is essentially just, I can make this a little cleaner, bar position like so. This is just normal addressable spawning, right? Or, well, instantiating in Unity. Now, if I go back now and I populate the fields, if you're familiar with PurrNet, which I imagine you are at this point, when you normally instantiate, PurrNet essentially intercepts that and does auto-spawning for you. And with PurrNet, or with addressable, sorry, it's essentially the exact same. So let's go ahead and plop the addressable in here. That's now that. I go in here, well, actually, I just realized we didn't hook it up at all. So let me just do an onspawned and just enabled is equal to its owner. So only for the owner is enabled. And then an update I do if, let's do input.get key down. Let's do keycode.r, for example. Then we spawn the addressable. There goes. Now I can just spawn it by a button click. So now we go back out and we can actually get to test. So again, I've filled in the object. We just do completely normal addressable spawning. And as you can see now, when I go ahead and hit R, it spawns it just fine. Now, obviously, this could just be local instantiation, so I'm going to go ahead and connect my clone here, and as you can see, he correctly caught up with all the addressables as well, and he can now also go around and spawn, and you can see that works just fine over the network, even though it is just an addressable. And just to confirm with you as well, to make sure there's no shenanigans going on in the network prefabs, you can see we don't have the object here because it's pointed to the prefabs folder, not the addressables folder. So it isn't a normal spawning, it is indeed spawning using the addressables. So this is how easy it is to spawn with the addressables. Now let's try and also just store, let's do a private list of the references that we get out from instantiating. So what we get out here is a game object. So let's just keep a reference to the game object. And this is spawned objects, like so. And let's just plop that directly in here. So new objects is equals to that. And then in here, we will add that new object results. There we go. So this should be the result of essentially spawning, instantiating it directly. Now, because it is an async, we should probably await that. Sorry. And so we need to make this an async, then we can await the instantiation, and we need to await the task itself. There we go. Now we don't need to put the result in here. There it goes. Now we have the new object that comes out after awaiting the task, and we have the spawned object in here. So now let me add another, which will be despawn addressable, and we'll do that on, let's say, T. And then make a private void despawn addressable. And it's essentially the exact same thing. So with addressables, what you normally do is you do addressables.release instance, and we're gonna do pretty much the exact same thing. So first of all, let's just make sure that there's actually something in there. So let's do underscore spawned objects.count is greater than 0. Or rather, if it's less than 1, then we return, which means if there's something in there, we're now down here. And here we can then just get it at the index. We can essentially just do addressables reset instance, spawned objects.count at index 0. And then we also just remove it at index 0. There we go. So now we're essentially spawning the first object, or despawning the first object. And yeah, so let's just go and test that. So now this is just normal, again, normal addressable handling that now should just work with multiply. The way it also works is if they're all unloaded, it'll actually clear it up from memory again as well. So here, for example, I'm going to spawn 1, 2, 3, and then as I hit T, T, and T, that works. And now let me go ahead and do it over here. So he spawns 1, 2, and 3, and I hit T, T, and T, and it indeed despawns them correctly. And yeah, as soon as there's none in the scene, it'll clear it from memory. This is something that you can control on the network rules themselves. So network rules will now have addressable rules, and there's the ability to sync the load states, wait for load before the object is spawned, and release when last is despawned. So which means when there's none present, it'll essentially fully release them from memory. So spawning and despawning is as easy as that. Just working with normal addressables, that's essentially all you have to do. So yeah, easy as that. That's the main goal of PurrNet, just keeping everything simple and straightforward. Now let's move into the actual scene handling. Now for this, on my game manager, I've already put a test scene load object in here. Exactly the same thing. There's nothing in there from the very beginning. Now let me just do it with the per buttons and context menus, and then I'll do private void load scene 1 like that, and we'll just make a load scene 2 as well, so that way we can see that we can move back and forth. So there we go. So now with loading scenes with addressables, the same thing. Addressables.load scene async. Oops. Load scene async. So we just need to get the asset reference, and let's just call this one scene 1 and this one scene 2. Now we have 2 asset references in here. Now this is how you'd normally load scenes. However, with PurrNet, you do have to load scenes through PurrNet. Similar to normal PurrNet scene management, there are limitations to what we can do. So if we do network manager dot scene module, and then we do the load addressable scene, which is now available, you can then feed it the asset reference of the scene, and you can then also feed it the per scene settings, which we can just create some new ones off here with the default, essentially the default ones. And that's it. We should now load the scene, and the default should be that it is public, I believe. We can actually do this public true just for good measure. And same thing down here. We can do the same thing, but with scene 2. And we can also just ensure the load scene mode actually. So let's do load scene mode single, just to make sure that it actually replaces the other scenes, because that's what we want. And that should pretty much be it. So now if we go back into Unity, and we make sure that we make our scenes addressables first of all, because they're not currently. So let me go find the scenes, both my scenes here, make them both addressable, and they should both be added to the group. And now that they're both addressables, we can go into the game manager. Let me open the prefab and let's feed it the scenes. The game scene is scene 1, test scene is scene 2, and that should pretty much do it. So now that I go ahead and hit play and my client joins, I'm going to go ahead and hit load scene 2. And both clients are loaded into the scene just fine. You can see there's some game exception here because the game isn't set up for this, but nonetheless, the scene loading works fine. I can go back here again. I can go find my game manager again. I can say load scene 1, and you can see that we're both getting moved back to scene 1. And again, this is working through addressables. So scene loading is also pretty darn easy. It's not as integrated into the addressables flow, and this is because we need you to have the flexibility of telling that you're actually loading a scene over the network and not locally. But still, pretty much just a one-line thing to do, right? So this should be pretty easy. And then the next thing that I want to show is essentially, and we can just use the same script, is the ability to actually send the asset references over the network. Now, this is what's already described in the documentations page under the Addressables RPC. And we have something that we call a network addressable. This is essentially what can just be auto-packed from various asset references. So if I go ahead and I make an observers RPC, and I just call this one private void, let's call it receive addressable as per the docs. And this then needs to take in the network addressable. And this is your addressable. Now we can send whatever. Let's just try and send also the object through. So we have the asset reference game object, my object. And so let's try and make a new method here. I'm just gonna make this call RPC. And actually, let's just make this a normal asset reference and then call this one RPC object. So that way we can test it with various things. And then here we instead just call the receive addressable with that asset reference. And that's it. You can see you can just put the asset reference directly in here. It's automatically packed into your network addressable. And then on the receiving end, you have your network addressable. You can see you have your asset reference directly available here. You also have the direct object asset and whether it's actually valid in there. So first things first is we can just check if it is valid. Then we debug.log and say what we got. So we can do the addressable like that. And then we can just debug log the addressable. I think it already has a toString. Yep, it should log. Actually, it should just log the addressable and whether it's available all at once. So that's that easy. So we don't even need to do that. We can just log it directly. So that's essentially it. Now you can send addressables over the network as well, regardless of whether they're already loaded in memory or not. If they're not loaded in memory, the receiving end will just load them as needed be. So let me now go in here, go into the network manager, scroll down, and I hit call RPC. And it's of course null, which is why they're both erroring. I was confused for a second. And now let me try and just put something in here that we haven't already predefined. So I'm going to drag and drop the test addressable in here. And it's angry about the scene management for some reason. And then I'm going to call RPC, and now you can see they both have actually received the test addressable correctly. And so yeah, you can see how easy it is to just load anything or to just send anything over the network. The cool thing is, and this might be something if you're working with addressables and general data structures like on databases, it might be good for you to look into the network addressable because it is using the type of async packable, which means they can actually receive them later. So if the RPCs send, they won't necessarily come within ping time. Well, it will be arrived, but it can take time to pack and unpack. So you can essentially customize how to pack them with awaitables within them. So yeah, that gives general quite a lot of freedom, and this is just one example usage of it, the network addressable, but it can be used for so much more. So yeah, this should be pretty much all there is to it. Hopefully this makes sense. Remember, refer to the docs if you have any questions as well, and feel free to ask in the comments below, and we'll of course try and be as helpful as we can.